Ukraine is waiting on Senate approval after the House passed a bill to send an additional $40 billion in aid to the war-torn country.
That's right. Ukrainian officials say the assistance would be essential to defeating Russia. In the meantime, the Ukrainian government says Russian forces have been suffering substantial setbacks surrounding the city of Kharkiv. New video shows Ukrainian troops recapturing parts of the region once under Russian control. So let's bring in CBS News foreign correspondent Charlie D'Agata now for more on this. Hi, Charlie. Great to see you. So what kind of aid exactly will Ukraine receive if the Senate approves this new $40 billion package just passed in the House?
Well, as far as the Ukrainian government is concerned, desperately needed aid. And I think it speaks volumes, the fact that it really flew past the House. It will likely fly past the Senate. But it is a lot of money, $40 billion in this aid package. Let me break it down for you. A lot of it's going to the military, as you might expect. $6 billion for weaponry, intelligence, support, and training. $8.7 billion. That's to replenish American equipment that's already here. It's a huge chunk of money. $3.9 billion to support European command. Remember, European partners are helping on the outside of Ukraine and within Ukraine itself. In addition, and this is important too, because remember, this country has come to a standstill during this conflict, $13.9 billion, now set aside for the U.S. State Department to help the Ukrainian government function. The economy is all but screeched to a halt. In addition to that, $4.4 billion in food assistance, another $900 million for refugees. It's not just refugees that have left the country, but these are internally displaced people within the country itself. You know, these are millions of people who remain displaced from areas here in eastern Ukraine to the west. So there's a great number of refugees who have fled the country. A number of them have come back to the more peaceful and settled areas, the ones that aren't getting as smashed and beat up as these areas in the east. But they all need help. They all need financial support. But a great chunk of that is going toward the the military effort in the fight against the Russians.
Charlie, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky says that Ukrainian troops are successfully pushing Russian forces away from Kharkiv and back towards the border. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, Mola, that is a significant development because the Russians and Russian-backed separatists have been hammering Kharkiv for 2 months. This is Ukraine's second largest city. It is a massive city. The Russians had no success trying to go into Kyiv itself. But Kharkiv is a lot closer to the Russian border. There are supply routes that are open there that the Russians have control of. Yet they've not only been unable to take Kharkiv, but the Ukrainian forces have been able to push them out of villages largely in the northeast. That doesn't mean necessarily that the Russians are on the back foot entirely in Kharkiv, but they've been liberating, to use the words of President Zelensky and the Ukrainian military, liberating these villages. And what they're seeing is a lot of destruction of Russian military vehicles, a lot of destruction of homes and apartments and residential areas, similar to the types of scenes you saw around, Bucha and Irpin when the Russians were pushed out of those areas. Civilian cars, convoys of civilian cars that had been shot up. You see baby strollers, prams, baby car seats, giving an indication, suggesting that's evidence that civilians were fired on even as they tried to flee. However, in as much as there is some success that the Ukrainian military can report in Kharkiv, which is important and it is fundamental, here in the Donbass region, a little bit further south, they are really getting whacked in a number of towns. Closest to us is Popasna. That's due east. That has fallen to the Russians. The Ukrainian military has said that. We've spoken to soldiers here. I mean, they're really shell-shocked. They have been fighting this trench warfare, and they've been getting hammered with artillery. Here in Bakhmut, again, as the Ukrainians say, this is next in line. If you were to draw a line from Popasna west, Bakhmut is the next town on that line, and they say that is the next objective for the Russian military. Been a lot more explosions over the past 24 hours. We understand some of that has been outgoing. There's a lot of artillery. They're fighting back the Russians. They're doing all they can to hold that line. But the Russian military is pushing in from several axes now, and the Ukrainian military is doing what they can. But when it comes to the air power, we saw this huge crater today, right on the outskirts of town, right in the middle of this dirt road. And it was the biggest thing that I've seen since I've been here. And that says a lot because I've seen a lot of the destruction there. Hard to know what they were aiming at. This is a quiet residential neighborhood, but it's just the indication of the sheer firepower of the Russians. And there just isn't anything to defend against something like that. And it causes fear, and it causes panic, and it causes residents to leave. And there is nothing that can fight against something that powerful.
Charlie D'Agata on the ground in Ukraine. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.